Hey guys, Dustin Wynn.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're listening to Bat Force Radio, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to Bat Force Radio, the DC Batman podcast with no limits. We have a phenomenal show today. I am extremely excited. For any of you guys who listen and watch, you know me, 89 was my introduction to Batman, the character. The movie is still my favorite, as you can see with all the stuff in the background. Let's just get into it today. We're going to go around the room. I'm Bat Force Tom over in Southern California. We got Teases over in Dirty Jersey. And we have two gentlemen from a fantastic company. If you're an action figure guy, if you are a pop culture collector, NECA is kind of a household name at this point. But we have Marty and Stefan from NECA. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
So guys, we are going to be talking about the Batman 89 utility belt that you are putting out. Perfect timing as Michael Keaton is making his way back into the Batsuit. The Flash is coming out. As we put this out, the film will be out. So, I mean, this is, like I said, perfect timing for all this stuff. Specifically today, we are going to be talking about the beautiful thing you guys put together, the 89 utility belt, the packaging as well. I mean, you know, I got a room full of Batman 89 stuff, and this packaging looks beautiful as well, especially the back with the details of what comes in the package. I want to make sure that people know where to get it. The NECAstore.com is the place to go to order this piece. And then, Teases, you were saying that there's a bundle on there that's not available necessarily retail, right?
Right. So if you're going to get the belt via the store, you're going to get that battering as well. It includes the grapnel gun, but in order to kind of maximize on all the magnetic props that connect to the pump panel, if you order that directly through the store, you're going to get that battering as well. So it's a pretty sweet deal overall. This is the first time I'm opening the box, and the presentation kind of just speaks to itself. It's just molded really and articulated so beautifully that you're kind of you open it up and exactly you just see that grapnel gun, and you open the next layer and the whole arsenal is just kind of just set up for you. And kind of it's just a bunch of eye candy.
Can you guys give us a quick rundown of what you're responsible for with this product?
Well, we were tasked with making the Bat Belt as a prop replica first. And the more we talked about it, the more ideas that came up to make it almost like a functioning, wearable costume piece accessory. And I guess blending those two things together was the main goal of making the Bat Belt happen. Basically, it has to look like the movie, which was number one. And I was tasked with basically getting the design and idea together for 3D artists to create it and to art direct from there on. So we brought Marty Henley on board, a fantastic 3D artist who I worked very closely with on the whole sculpt, the design, everything from the little compartments inside of it to how it should actually function in production and that sort of thing. So, yeah, we worked closely on that together and went back and forth and in a collaborative effort came up with what we have now, a functioning, wearable, accurate looking Bat Belt from 89.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm Marty. Stefan reached out to me and sent me this email, and I just about fell out of my chair because Batman 89 is like my Batman 2. That was my introduction to the darker version of Batman, and I was super excited about it. As a kid, I was just fascinated with like the gadgetry of Batman, and getting to put my hands in that franchise was fantastic. And working back and forth with Stefan was awesome. Like, he really was into the project too, and we would come up with like all these little, different components and stuff, and it was great working with him.
We wanted to make the presentation kind of part of it, because if we were going to put it all in a box, if people want to display it on their shelf like that, that's an option. Like, they don't have to wear it necessarily as a costume piece. And that's something Marty and I discussed too. Like, how far do we take it as a replica, and how far do we go with like making it cool, gadgety, functiony, for the consumers, stuff that we haven't seen in the movie at all, that he doesn't use. And Marty can talk a little bit about designing stuff that would work in the '89 film, as if Michael Keaton Batman was using those stuff, which we never saw in the movie, but could have been in the film, or could have been in that universe, So the blister was part of like, let's make it a display piece so people can, put all the accessories back if they want to into the blister, and we make it matte finish black, and we put the Batman logo in there. Just a little bit more bang for the buck for a display item.
We had a question from a good buddy, Logan Wood, who I think he noticed right away from the back panel pictures. He was like, "Oh, this looks like the guidebook with all the little pieces," and he wanted to know, was that part of the inspiration for the design of this thing?
Yeah, definitely. When Stefan sent me the initial email, there was a list of things that we could put into the little capsules and in the little pockets and stuff. Some of them logistically we couldn't get in, or we had to cut things down for manufacturing, what have you. But this illustration was definitely a huge inspiration. Like I said in that other interview, you can see there on the illustration the little camera, and you can see like 2/3 of the camera sticking out of the little capsule. And so I use that to kind of inform my design language for all the other components. You can also see there the little gas pellet, but that wasn't going to logistically work for what was going on with the rest of the components. That little capsule felt more like a medicine pill. And so what I did there was I just did a deep dive into anything I could find Batman utility belt related through comics or video games. And so I ended up finding, I think I sent you an illustration from one of the Batman video games of the 3 little smoke pellets.
That's from...
Yeah, and so I used that as inspiration for those little gas pellets. And the fun thing about that was trying to engineer that so that they would clip into that little holder and pop out. So all those little beads pop out just like they would if Batman was using them and throwing them. So again, like I said in that other video, I tried my best to make 14-year-old me happy. Like, if I was playing like this and pretending to be Batman, like, I wanted to feel like I could toss these things and have some fun with it. So
That's amazing. I mean, you guys nailed it. It looks exactly what, when I was a kid and I saw this movie, I always assumed it was one of those little pieces. And sure enough, as this illustration comes out, it shows you all the little things inside of it. And the belt really does a great job of. I love this part of the packaging, by the way. Like Steve was saying, you pull away that top layer of the grapnel, and then you lift that up, and the second thing you see is this. This is just gorgeous, like that. I was thinking, like, when I was opening this up, I'm like, I got to put that on the shelf. Look how good that looks.
Yeah,
you almost want to one to like this and one to put together.
Yeah.
That smoke bomb you were talking about in the movie was this. It's really kind of interesting. I mean, it's a really cool design. I don't understand necessarily, what the little bullet aspect of it is, but in the movie, he takes this out and tosses it down in the chemical plant, and it breaks open. Gas pops out.
And we made it a pressure fit so that you can actually put water in there without any
way.
Yeah. But
oh
you
my
put
God.
whatever liquid in there.
Dude, I just...
yeah. So it's not glued, it's pressure fit, and you can put whatever one in there to make your own chemical gadgets, You're the Batman of this world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and playing off what Stefan said there, you're the Batman of this world. Like, that's one of the reasons why we have 6 different components that fit into the 4 components on the belt. So you can imagine like what kind of mission you're going on, and you can place individual, whether you need a torch, whether you need a scanner, whatever the thing you're going to be doing is, you can like customize your belt for the mission you're going on. So that was a big idea that we were playing around with.
Yep. As you guys mentioned that, something that pops into my mind immediately, I'm thrown back to the Dark Knight collection used to have those gadgets. Little kid is built and to scale for a child. I remember having that. One of them was the utility belt, and the way you're describing that makes me think of being that kid, of having the belt, having the little things, throwing things down, pulling them out, and all that kind of thing. It's funny because that's what I wanted to do as a kid, and now you have it as the real deal as an adult, And I'm not sure if many people know, but this thing opens up to fit different waistband sizes, so it actually expands out. Did I see that correctly, to a size 55 waist?
50, 51 maybe, something 51. Like that. 51 to 55, and yeah, it's for all sized Batman out there, and obviously we made it collapse to its regular size for the Keaton waist or whatever, so you can have that on your shelf as like the Batman belt. And then we put that extender in there with a ratcheting system that you could extend and clip the belt buckle. And the belt buckle in the front pops open, and you put it on like an actual belt.
Very satisfying.
Just like that.
We were thinking of maybe doing an ASMR video on the side to accompany this episode, because of all the satisfying ratcheting and clicking and all that. So very there's multiple layers of satisfaction with this belt, to be honest with you. You guys mentioned a little bit here, like, this is what I want to know. First of all, NECA has a fantastic history with other properties, 7-inch figures, horror. I think if you ask any action figure collector, they're gonna have multiple NECA pieces in their collection. TMNT, Batman 66. At one point, you guys did a Reeve Superman and 89 Batman, which arguably, action figure guys might say your Batman 89 is still the best 7-inch figure, or that scale figure. So obviously, you guys have this amazing property that you get to play with the 89. We mentioned earlier off screen, there's the Batarang you guys came out with. This one folds up, magnetized. It fits on the belt itself. And I got to imagine the idea was, at some point, you're putting out the Batarang, you're putting out the grapnel gun. Was the belt always in the cards? What was the idea, the process, the timeline of getting to the belt? Because once the belt was announced, I was like, oh my God, dude, like, they're going crazy with this thing now.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the belt was always on like the props list. I mean, it's iconic, right? When you see Keaton and his whole costume, obviously you want the full thing, but it's realistically an option for us to make in plastic that people can buy at a certain price point. You're not going to get the whole costume. The cowl is very expensive to make, and it won't fit everybody, right? So we came up with a list of, certain things, and the first one was, of course, the Batarang, because it's small. People can buy it at a nice, cheaper price. It's not like, $100 item or whatever. And we tried to put as much function as we could into that, folding it so it actually, flips out when he flips it out in the movie, with the magnets in it and stuff. And then we did the launcher, functionally fire the dart across with a string in it and fold up just like the movie. And then at that point, we were like, well, we have the two most iconic gadgets. We discussed the line launcher, but that was even bigger of a project. Huge piece. I mean, that's like, the weight of that alone would be something engineeringly would be difficult to figure out. But the bat belt was the next thing on the list, because we had those first two items. It almost made sense that we made like a carrying thing for those items. We knew we had magnets in the Batarang for it to flip out and click together, and we knew we had a magnet in the grapnel launcher, so it just kind of worked out. We were like, let's put magnets in the belt to hold those things where they need to be, where they slide out in the film. And when we got to designing the bat belt, we said, well, we never really did that grapnel gun separating, because the engineering of the motor function inside the first one didn't allow us to separate it. it was either a motor or a separation. So this time with the bat belt, decided to include that really cool, clicking function just like that, which is so iconic in the movie that he puts two little things together and then shoots a functioning, thing that can hold 108 pounds, right?
Apparently, it should, but sometimes it gets stressed and it could do a little more.
So that's how it evolved.
A lot of us have owned these replicas for the past year, and no one even knew that there was a magnetic function in it. So this is kind of like a hidden gem, Another thing too is like you see this. To me, this is like another logo.
It's iconic. They're all iconic. Yeah. All those props are iconic from that film.
Yeah, and also like doing this belt, even though this it attaches to it, the little remote control for the Batmobile. Like this was super cool. I remember seeing this in a movie when calls the Batmobile in, and then he just like holds it up and says stop. Like to me, that was like amazing that you had a self-driving car and the little component here. So
also has a magnet which goes on.
Yeah.
Just like when it slides over on his belt. So we wanted to put as much function into this thing as possible, but still make sure at the end of the day it looks like the bat belt you see on screen. That was the tough thing to do.
Yeah.
There's a list. You said there's a list that you guys are going through. How are there other items on the list that you're still looking at?
I mean, every item depends how the last one really did. So if the Batarang didn't do well, we probably would never have gotten to the grapple launch. And if that didn't do well, we would have never gotten to the bat belt. So it really depends. I mean, as you know, there are so many cool props that Keaton uses or that even Joker uses in the film. And maybe not just from 89, but, the Batverse itself. So I guess it really depends on how well the bat belt does. If people still are clamoring for more of these props and things, the list can keep growing, and we want it to all function together. So that's another thing too.
I think you made a valid point. Like I didn't even think about that whole aspect that you guys could make some Joker props and kind of introduce that into the story. Like you think it's taking out that elongated, gun. Yeah, it's never been done before, and what's amazing about this is like just life 1-to-1 scale that no one else is doing in the game.
There's
anyone's pumping out figures, but NECA is the only company that's actually doing these movie prop-esque.
I mean, there are so many iconic things from that movie, even from the Joker. Not that we could do a realistic looking gun per se, but what about his flower acid thing? What about
Smilet scans or anything? Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff. That movie is just top to bottom so cool looking. Still to this day. I mean, look at the popularity of Keaton back now in a Flash movie is even, getting people to go.
And we have no idea what kind of props he's going to have on the gadgetry in this new movie too. So
that's true.
That's true. Yeah. Marty, again, like if I'm working at NECA and I know that we have this license for this property to use these things, and I get this email that says, hey, 89 whatever, belt whatever, you see this, you freak out. That was a question that I had, was like, I would assume then, based off of that, like it's not like announced, hey guys, we're working on this new belt, like good luck if anyone gets on the team, like because I would be fighting, I would be throat cutting, I would be undercutting, I would be undermining my coworkers to get the chance to work on a product like this. So behind the scenes, like how does that happen? How do you knowingly have this license in this product that you can work on, and then get, I guess, selected to work on it? And like how does that work for you guys?
Stefan would have to speak about how I got selected, but I will say this: at NECA, every project I get is fantastic. I mean, it's a fanboy dream almost every single thing I get. So whether it's Batman or the D&D figures,
secret headquarters, like all the projects have crazy challenges to them. They're just really fun, and they're fun to engineer. They're fun to sculpt. It's just like, as a kid, I sit here and sculpt, and in my head, the child me is like, oh my God, I cannot believe I get to work on this thing. Mm-hmm. And so, working on the Batman belt, I got the email, said your next project is this. And I was like, that's amazing. I love it. But as far as like how I got selected for it, that's a Stefan question.
I actually have a
Yeah.
question regarding that. Real quick, how long from start to finish did it take for you to do all your research and to kind of get a 3D something on paper to show that, hey, this is how I envisioned it? Like, how long does that take from start to finish to get it pre-production to where Stefan's looking at the mold and he's saying, let's shoot it over for development and see what happens?
So from the time Stefan gave me the project, first thing I did was sculpt the belt out, make sure that and I actually sculpted it flat, and then had to like use my programs to bend it around. But once I got the overall look of the belt, that's when I started cutting things up and making it so that it had the components in the little capsules, made it so that all these little side pieces, if I can get this off here, it's a nice snug fit. So these little side pieces here, they have all the components in them. Then I had to go and sorry, just so you can see all the little detective kit in here and the little tech stuff. So once I got the overall belt shape like this and the thicknesses and everything and the curvature correct, then I went in and started like hollowing out these and figuring out what kind of negative space I had to deal with to put these in. The 3D printer I had at the time could only print like small things, so I was able to print this and the little capsule that it goes in, so I could test all these and kind of play around with paint ups and stuff. And I was able to print just this little section of the belt so I could test fit and stuff to make sure things were going to fit together. But I didn't get to see the whole thing together until we got some samples back from China.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like you're working on this stuff. You're sketching. You're sculpting and you're putting it all together. You're working on it. Not even sure like what fully it will look like until you get it, from like the first draft of like off an assembly line.
Yeah. So if you look, some of the pictures I sent you of the little components like this are gray. If you have some of those, yeah. So that is the rebreather. So that's what my file model looks like inside of ZBrush while I'm working. And then the next slide should be a color version of that. Yeah, so that is a 3D digital paint up of like kind of my concept of, what that could look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would print these out and do some just little, mock trial paint ups for myself to kind of see how it was going to read and everything. And then I think once this was printed out, Mikey Puzo, was that correct? Who painted this one up?
Yeah.
He's one of our amazing painters at NECA, and he did a fantastic job of painting these up and making them look realistic. So,
yeah, we really had no idea what the colors would be because this stuff was invented. I mean, we knew the bat belt was yellow like the movie, but everything else inside was, either it was based on that original drawing that you showed earlier, or basically what we could come up with in our heads. And Marty was cool enough to do all those paint mock-up models, which we then followed for the paint and stuff. And it was shot, sent to the licensor. They approved and loved what we had come up with and what we did. And then it's sent to China. And yeah, the paint and stuff was just part of the thing. The creation, the design elements of that, we were able to invent stuff, which you don't get to do a lot with licensed product. A lot of it is so regimented in exactly what is in the movie that a lot of the 3D artists that we have can't create and can't make up stuff. But thankfully we had somebody like Marty, and that's why, going back to the previous question of why did we choose Marty or whatever, I trusted him and knew that he was able to do this both creatively and that he was a big fan. That helps tremendously. That he can come up with the stuff and that like we don't have to nitpick everything that he does. We knew we could trust him with this project, that he could bring the project home, and that he could do the actual work of making all these things function together. You need an engineering mind to do that, not just sculpting like something pretty, but to make this an actual functioning thing before we even send it to China, because they have to take it to a whole nother level. We needed somebody like Marty, and that was the first and only choice, really.
That's fantastic, man. Congrats on that. Yeah, It's amazing to see. We were going to ask that. You did a phenomenal job. I mean, as a fan, to see where you go with the limited amount of, like you don't see in the movie him opening this thing up. You see a little bit of the images of him clipping things on and off of it. But as you mentioned in the Q&A earlier, there's a lot of what is in there, what's going underneath there, and I like how you mentioned even at one point the style guide it only shows like the top tip of what pops out. So what's underneath it? Where do I go with that? How do I use that?
So I'll tell you a little bit there. Like if you go back to that image and you see the top of that camera, do you see the inner workings of that belt?
It's like circuitry.
Yeah, it's kind of like little gears and stuff. So that was another thing that kind of influenced me as well, because I started thinking like, Batman, he kind of has a little bit of like graphic design to his work, but like the components and stuff that he uses, he really only cares about the function of them. And so I tried to make these pieces inside look like they were kind of raw machined pieces that were serving a function and didn't necessarily have to look wonderful. Although I did try to make them look as pleasing as possible, I wanted them to look functional and like they were engineered.
Speaking to that engineering, Marty and I had discussed early on, you can see in this image here, oh wow, like all the panels have hinges, and like the belt buckle has a hinge door that opens up in 2 spots, and the side panels have hinge doors. We wanted to do all of that, but the limitations in China of the plastic and the like the amount of give that you need in between joints and stuff was just not there to make that like a realistic functioning thing in the real world. So we decided to do pop-off panels. We decided to do a belt buckle that actually snaps together. So we were limited with like the actual realistic world of manufacturing a plastic belt that you could still put on and wear.
Yeah.
But I think we found that happy medium where we could have like all the cool function stuff, some interchangeability, like Marty was saying. We've got more capsules than there's actually holes for. And then adding in those extra things for people, I think was more like a bang for your buck, because when are we ever going to when are we going to be able to create these things for the Keaton movie like that?
Yeah.
Where like we couldn't put it with anything else. So let's load up the Bat Belt. Let's give them everything in this one set, and fans will be happy, hopefully.
Yeah. How does you mentioned having the ideas of where to go with some of the things that are unseen and how to fill that space with those ideas. How does that work with a product that is licensed where, like in the past, they want you to adhere to a certain standard or certain things? Did they have anything specific with this belt as far as like what you are not allowed to do, what you cannot do, where you can't go?
Thankfully, we didn't get into any of those road issues or roadblocks with this specific thing, because we went step by step, because we knew we were creating things out of the blue here, and that's very rare in this licensing owned world for stuff that we do. And so when Marty finished the 3D sculpts, we sent each and every turnaround like he showed of each and every part. We sent that to the licensor for approval. Then we sent his paint images for paint. Then when we actually painted a physical copy for China to copy, we took photos of that and made sure everything was approved every step of the way. There was a little delay on it, basically, if we could do life-size props or not. I think that was a little bit of a snag, but when that was ironed out, everything flowed smoothly, and thank God we were able to do all those things, because if we weren't, all we would have is literally a belt that clips together. That's all we would have at the end of the day, which is fine, but it's not as cool as having all these other gadgets that Batman would have. It's that's the bang for the buck.
Yeah, I'm sorry to jump in, but you guys have really created this whole storytelling element of it. To me, that's what's so visually intriguing. Just the details. To me, when I want to display this piece, I want to display each and every component in front of the belt, and it just so much just such a display piece for your room, and it just complements anything 89 that you have, And from a NECA perspective, I think what's so exciting is you guys kind of set the bar for everyone else. Like, no one else is going to replicate this and not see what you guys have done.
Yeah.
You've kind of raised that bar and the standard for what's going to be
Yeah.
regarding any
as a display piece, and for the cosplayers out there that do want to wear a bat belt that can extend to around whatever size they are, and that can clip and lock into position, that I'm not sure has ever been done in the mass market field. The cosplayers can now wear it or put it on their shelf when they're not at a convention or when they're not doing their own thing. So,
Yeah.
it works.
So
we got a good.
can I piggyback off what you asked Stefan about the content of the belt?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So I'll tell you, it was super awesome working with Stefan because he's a big Batman fan as well, and like coming up with these components, just back and forth with him, like coming up with ideas and having another fan kind of put in their input and like create these things. I think it was a great benefit. And it was just fantastic making this thing with another fan. So
yeah, a lot of fun. Fun.
What's your favorite for Stefan and Marty? What's your favorite component that you guys have come up with? If you were to pick your favorite or most challenging or the most satisfying that you actually make this come to life, like what gets you excited out of this set?
For me, I've got a couple because I'm a big nerd when it comes to fidgety little things that move, and so I love the little gas bombs because they pop out. I get it out, and it's a nice snug fit, so these pop out. The other one is this little scanner because I was able to use that negative space and create this component that flips out, so it's a little bit larger, and it has all these little fake buttons and stuff on it, and a little kind of scanner array here. And if you flip it over, there's a little button here for you to press, and there's the little slider here for the different whatever effect's going to happen. And there's just all these little switches and things that are kind of hinted at, and the way things like snap back together. I really enjoy this one because it uses that negative space but creates a larger piece. So that was really fun to work on. And yeah, it was really kind of fun.
I have to throw one out. This is a new favorite of mine that I didn't know. Well, it's just a new favorite because of you guys in the Q&A again that you guys can go back and check out on the YouTube channel. By the way, you mentioned earlier like, what's the list of like for the gadgets? And it's like, well, it really depends on how it does. So that being said, go over to the NECA store and order this thing so we can see what else is on that list of gadgets to kind of get those dreams coming true. But as I was saying, a new favorite of mine, based off of what you guys designed, was you mentioned some of the inspiration for the rebreather. Can you explain where that comes from?
Yeah. So, as Batman, reading the comic books and watching the old cartoons and stuff, Batman would initially like jump into the water and have some type of rebreather. So this was, kind of an inspiration for a little breathing component that maybe gives you like one or two extra breaths underwater so that he can, stay under a little bit longer. So maybe, the villain thinks he's, out of commission or whatever. But this little component here, like you would hold in your mouth, and it just looks kind of cool. And I remember from episode 1 of Star Wars when the Jedi were in the water, they had like a little rebreather. So, it was just kind of a little fun little thing that drew a little bit of inspiration from that, and just kind of had fun with it.
So we have an official crossover prop replica. We have an official Star Wars and Batman prop crossover replica because of this. Very fitting to be called Bat Force at Bat Force Radio. So I love that. Because however wherever you come into Star Wars, people loved or hated the prequels. I was young enough to where the first one I was like, who's this Jar Jar guy? Anyways, the rest of it's kind of cool though. But that was one thing that I loved. I always loved that little rebreather. And when I heard you mention it on the Q&A, I was like, oh my god, that's amazing, dude. Like, of course, that sounds like it looks like even the little rebreather on there. I love that aspect that even other things are seeping into kind of like the aesthetic and the the inspiration behind some of the stuff that we already love. It's just kind of more crossover. This isn't like you're working on something small, right? This is Batman '89. This is paradigm shifting. This film, right? It's a cultural phenomenon, blockbuster phenomenon. Where did you guys? What do you remember of that time in your lives of this film coming out? What do you remember about where you were? What did it do to your brain?
I wasn't born, But,
From what you heard, yeah.
but from when watching it in the 90s, probably 97 or 98 on VHS, I mean, for the first thing was the music and the gothic tone. Obviously, I love the Joker, I love Batman, but this dark kind of gothic world that Tim Burton created, and coupled with Danny Elfman's score, was just like mind blowing for me as a kid, because that's the very first thing of Batman I ever saw. No comics, no 66, nothing else. Batman 89 was the first time I ever saw Batman. So for me, that is Batman. That's the start of Batman for me when I watch it as, a 5-year-old, blown away, and then just a few years later, Menace for me. But thankfully, I was able to watch the 89 Batman and then the 92 Batman Returns, which is one of my favorite films of all time. And I wish we could get to some of those props. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, But I love that whole Tim Burton world, that aesthetic. Yeah. From the gadgets to the costumes to the score to everything. That, to me, is Batman.
Yeah, and when I saw it in the theater when I was 14, and I remember back then, like, there wasn't, the internet presence wasn't there, if there was an internet at all at that point in time. And so the commercial was just the Bat logo. If you got any glimpse of Michael Keaton as Batman, it was like a Today Show kind of appearance or something like that, where they would sneak peek a little tiny silhouette of something. Or if you got Starlog magazine or Comic Scene magazine, there might be like an image of one of the Bat gadgets or something. But when I saw that movie, and like I said in that other interview, when Michael Keaton reveals himself to the thugs on the roof and he puts his wings up and it's that iconic Batman, it went away from the Adam West, right? So there's no more camp. This was like a legit, serious action superhero. And he kind of looks menacing there. And the two guys playing the thugs, they look terrified. This really cemented Michael Keaton as being able to play this powerful hero, because I know there was a little bit of controversy about, Michael Keaton. Why'd you pick Michael Keaton? But whenever he shows up, the guys are scared. He's like kicking people through doors. He's holding people over ledges, showing like how powerful he is. We get to see the gadgetry for the first time. We get to see his psychological effect on the bad guys of telling them, like, listen, go tell people I'm Batman, I'm here. And at the end, he jumps off the roof and just disappears like a ninja. I love that. That's my Batman. The Batman who is an active crime fighter. He's Sherlock Holmes. He's a ninja. He is like a master of disguise. He's all these things. And I think that one shot just kind of set up Batman and that universe. So,
yeah.
As a fan, I just wanted to say, like, growing up, this was a cultural revolution. Like, when it came to product, this kicked down the doors for the expansion of toys, figures, Batmobiles, bringing back the old properties. It just got people excited just to celebrate Batman for who he was. And it just, whatever version you loved of Batman was just celebrated at that time. And like you said, like, we didn't know, we couldn't go on the internet, or we had catalogs, or growing up, if we went to toy stores, that was our scope of what Batman was and what was available. And then there was all these crazy spin-offs that were kind of mapped up with the older properties. So it was just a big cluster of just an explosion of Batman. I remember wearing Batman sunglasses, like anything that I can get my hands on, I got it, and growing up, 30 years later, we're grabbing the old stuff, but we want to see these reinventions with technology of this. And that's what makes this product so amazing, because never in our mind would we imagine you guys making a utility belt and doing such a deep dive.
Yeah.
It's you should really be proud of what you did. Like, when I heard you were doing it, I was like, you guys kind of pulled off the impossible. Like, it's really, as a fan, where do you start from and where do you end, So it's really incredible. It's a lot of eye candy, and you've kind of reprised this prop that we know so well into our hands. So it's really something incredible that any fan needs to get a hand of.
Yeah. The other great thing about that Batman 89 was it made all these other properties possible, right? So I think, if I'm not mistaken, after Batman 89, the Jim Henson Turtles movie came out, the live action. And this Batman movie made it so that people could see superheroes could be adult and gritty and fun and also kid friendly. And so, like, all this pop culture stuff we do is kind of owes itself to Tim Burton's Batman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really, it's a testament to all the different layers that went into making that film what it were. You mentioned this image right here, Marty, and what I love, and I'm still learning stuff about this movie, 30 years on. The thing that we recently learned was we got to be good friends with the stuntman right here. This is Carl Newman, actually, in the Batsuit, and he was the movement double that is actually credited for creating the hero turn, where because the suit and the cowl were so fixed, you couldn't turn your neck without making it look awkward. So he was the guy that he was a dancer by trade, and he turns in a way that it makes it look almost like operatic. The Phantom of the Opera in this movie, and he does it at the Axis Chemicals rooftop. He does it in this opening scene multiple times throughout the film when he's running. He actually wore the real belt, so it would be awesome to maybe get this thing in his hands and to see what he thinks about it. I think that would be amazing. He lives in England right now, but he's still very involved with getting in touch with the fans. So shout out to Carl Newman, one of our favorites, a very impactful guy in this film. Also, I gotta, something that's funny. When you guys announced this, I saw photos of the belt circulating already on Facebook. Michael Keaton is Batman is a Facebook group that I frequent. There's thousands of fans on there. They're constantly sharing photos and tidbits and their collections, run by our buddy Justin from Epic Film Guys podcast. And this is right up the alley of that kind of fan, right? These people who live and breathe the stuff of the films, they want to hold it in their hands. They see it on the film. It's had some form of impact in their life in some way, whether it's just visually or something else behind it. Having an actual physical piece like this, I mean, I think, yeah, it was cool. I saw the box. The box is amazing. Once I opened it and saw it and that big bright yellow just hit my face, I was like, oh my God, this is next level. This stuff is so cool to hold it in your hands. What kid who didn't see this movie wasn't running around in some form of cape and cowl, jumping off the bed, right? Mimicking the character. And now I can do it. Although the cape and cowl might be a little more snug, thankfully to you guys for your inclusive nature, the belt opens up a bit so it can fit me now, and I can get that sense again. But absolutely fantastic. It's funny because I see these photos circulating online. I'm gonna go put it in this Facebook group. They're already all over there. I'm like, oh, these guys are on top of it. So it's funny. Definitely this video will be shared on there because I know that group is going to absolutely go bonkers over all the little details and the tidbits and the behind the scenes. That's why I think this product is so cool, especially if you're a fan of this film and of '89 and of movies in general. It gives us like a living, breathing behind the scenes to something that you love. This is awesome because people love looking at photos like this and just imagining what it could be. And you guys made that real. You went the next step and said, well, what if I could put this in your hands? And that's what this is. So fantastic piece. So you mentioned Marty, I'm assuming this is your favorite Batman. Michael Keaton is your Batman.
Yes.
Okay. What would you say is the favorite, I guess, moment of the film for you personally?
That scene on the rooftop is a huge favorite for me. One of the other favorites this goes into Jack Nicholson, but he says, where does he get those wonderful toys? Like, that was very iconic. Jack Nicholson's fantastic. But one of the other shots in the movie is where he's flying the bat wing and he flies up in front of the moon and it creates that perfect bat symbol. I remember being in the theater and the entire crowd cheered for that. And it was so fantastic. And it was just playful and it was just fun.
Yeah. Stefan, what about you? Favorite moment?
I'm a huge Jack Nicholson fan, just in anything that he does, from The Shining to, as good as it gets. But he really steals the show in that movie for me. I loved the Joker as a kid, and he was the first Joker that I saw. And, well, the animated series, of course, Mark Hamill. So any scene in the Joker, any scene with the Joker is freaking hilarious to me. I watched the recent last year. I watched the 4K, and I was like cackling the whole movie because I hadn't watched it like in a couple years at least, and I just saw it in this whole new fresh light, and he was just so comically hilarious. I like every scene he just chews up. I love it.
Yeah.
Where did they get a load of me?
Yeah.
There's endless
trailer lines.
But you couldn't ask for a better energy between two actors. Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson played off each other perfectly.
It's a perfect movie in my opinion. It's my favorite Batman movie. We've seen so many iterations on film now where you could say they've kind of taken the character in as many places as they can in film, even places where people think they shouldn't have, with like Zack Snyder's films and stuff like that. I personally love, even though some of those are hated. I do love the Zack Snyder stuff. So, but there's nothing like the there you go. Stefan's a Snyder bro, toxic Snyder bro. Shout out to the toxic Snyder bros. There's nothing like the score, the visuals, the sets, the little gadgets of '89, the suit, everything. I think, in my opinion, that movie is perfect to me, and it is always cool to have more stuff coming out of that film that you can kind of hold in your hands. And so this is just right up our alley for sure. Before we go, is there anything else you guys wanted to mention? Obviously, we want to make sure, if you guys love the belt, if you want to grab a piece of this Batman '89 history, NECAstore.com. As Tease mentioned, there is a cool bundle where you also get the Batarang that was previously released, which is magnetized, that comes onto the belt with that bundle on there. So, any last words, guys?
Enjoy it. Have fun.
Yeah, buy two, display one, and
for sure,
one in the packaging.
One to rock, three. One to rock, one to stock, and one just in case. That's how I do it. That's just me personally. So
that's right.
Yeah. But thank you guys so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing some time with us to really geek out. This wasn't work. I mean, this is fun. So thank you guys for the work that you do. We end up getting to have fun with it. So have a great weekend, everyone, or a great week, whatever you guys might be getting into. And that's Bat Force Radio. Over and out.